Sorry about that. But the general meeting last fall, we got to talk over some things and some different action items, and obviously bring everybody up to date. But I just wanted to say that the board of directors of KEMA has been diligently working very hard every month. We hold our board meeting and a lot of actions in order to progress in the mission statement that KEMA has. One of those issues that we had a large discussion about at our last general meeting was the relationship with PEMA. And it was a good conversation. We felt that it was very important to have PEMA as a KEMA partner. And the board worked hard as far as to improve those relationships. And after we got a lot of things sorted out, I can say that PEMA has been an active partner with us and been present in every one of our board meetings at the executive level. In most cases, Director Padfield, Executive Director Thomas, and a lot of their staff, depending on the topics that we want. So that was a huge step for us. I think it was said at the meeting, we got to find out what's broken so we can fix it in that relationship, and I think we got there. So I'm pretty satisfied with that, which is a good segue into. I see Director Padfield is on the call here. It's a good segue into his welcoming and report as well. Director?
Thanks a lot, President Mertz. I'm assuming everybody can hear me. Bud, can you give me a thumbs up? Yep. Everything's good. Okay, great. I've been having intermittent problems with my microphone throughout the last couple of days. First of all, I'd like to start out by saying thank you to the board of directors at KEMA. As President Mertz indicated, we've met repeatedly with the board. And I think relationships like this are really critical in advancing emergency management across the state. We can't do this all, kind of in our own collective kind of groups that we work with, and I think, there are a lot of challenges, especially, some of the things in the future that, we may have to deal with. And I think the way to be able to do that is, collectively, discuss this and be able to move emergency management forward. So just a few things from my perspective to kind of lead off tonight. Number one is probably, the first thing that's on everybody's minds is coming out of the primary, the amendments that were actually voted on, and both of them that were ratified regarding emergency management across the state. So there are still a lot of unknowns regarding those amendments and, what impacts they're going to have for, emergency management operations going forward. We continue to work. This administration from, Governor Wolf's administration is committed to work with the General Assembly and the leaders, especially over the last 2 days. There's been meetings regarding what does this mean. You probably got information earlier today that the COVID-19 disaster declaration was extended. That was extended for a couple of different reasons. And then after the results of the election are certified and obviously the two constitutional amendments are certified, then they will have impacts on the length of the furtherance of the COVID-19 disaster declaration. So more information to come on that. I think the takeaway from the emergency management community for everybody that's online tonight is, I have personal feelings regarding these amendments. Personally, I think it's kind of set emergency management back significantly in the Commonwealth. I think there are a lot of things that need to be worked through yet, but ultimately, we have to work together to be able to move forward in spite of, or I shouldn't say in spite of, but in lieu of, the current constraints or the future constraints that we're going to have. The one thing I would point out, and this was not something that was brought out significantly when the amendments were talked about, but the one actually requires the General Assembly by statute to provide for the manner in which each type of disaster enumerated under the subsection is actually managed or shall be managed in the future. And they delineate 5 different types of disasters. And obviously the natural disasters, military emergency, public health emergency, technological disaster, and general emergency shall be managed. So again, it goes back to the unknowns. We're going to expect a legislation probably in the fall session. I would assume regarding what this is going to look like. The General Assembly is poised to be able to run legislation, and what I would invite everybody to do is, we want to make sure that that legislation is not necessarily restrictive. My concern with that is potentially, we've gone from an all hazards plan to now looking at, how specific types of emergencies are going to be managed. What that entails, I'm not exactly sure. But I think, hopefully we all have a voice in that. And the more unified that we can be, when our, input is solicited, is going to be really key to a lot of what goes into that. So, I think there's tremendous opportunity there to be able to, kind of guide what that legislation is going to look like as it relates to management of those disasters. Again, there are still a lot of unknowns, and usually, with unknowns, there's trepidation, but I think there's a tremendous opportunity, provided we have a unified front across the emergency management spectrum, to be able to provide the input where necessary to be able to kind of move things forward. As many of you have known, have been on here, we have lobbied for changes to Title 35 for, over 15 years, probably, the beneficial changes. The portion of Title 35 that is being amended in the state constitution is not something that has been problematic in years past. It has worked for every other disaster that we've had and worked reasonably well. But there are other areas of Title 35 that, we're always looking to get changed and updated to be able to modernize the practice of emergency management. So, I'd encourage everybody that's at the meeting tonight or that's listening in, to make sure that we exercise our voice, but we want to make sure we exercise our voice in unity regarding changes that are going to be beneficial and move emergency management forward and not actually set us back across the Commonwealth. Just a couple of things, I think, and President Mertz kind of alluded to this, COVID-19 was a significant impact across, a lot of the emergency management agencies. And I don't care whether you come from the private sector, the public sector, whether you work in healthcare, whether you work in, you're a municipal emergency management coordinator. There were a lot of things and vulnerabilities, and these vulnerabilities have been exposed, and we've known that they've been there for many years. The ability to be able to have enough surge when we take a look at disasters that impact all 67 counties to some degree, the capability to be able to respond to those, and COVID-19 was a much different disaster in the fact that it is truly a public health emergency, and emergency management really takes a role in that of being able to bolster the public health response to that. And I know that looked different in a lot of the counties. It looked different, depending on where you practice emergency management and, where you work. But ultimately, I think, just like anything else that we do in emergency management, there are a lot of lessons learned. We need to memorialize those lessons learned. We need to learn from that. We need to understand that it is a 1 in 100 year type of event. However, it doesn't mean it's not going to occur more frequently in the future, and it doesn't mean that we can't take some of the lessons learned to be able to move forward, to be able to incorporate in the kind of the general practice of emergency management and the things that we do from a day-to-day basis. I think, ultimately, working better as a profession from emergency management is really going to drive that change. And I think, being able to speak with, unity, and this is, where, from a governor perspective, and everybody that knows me, there's not a political bone in my body, but taking a look at, our lobbying effect and our ability to be able to effectuate change across the emergency management community and the spectrum is really key. And I think the more cohesive we are as a group, I think the better off we are to be able to kind of move whatever the agenda is forward, to be able to have consistent talking points, and to be able to get the change that we all really want to be able to move the profession forward in the Commonwealth. So I think really that driving change together is really key. It goes back to the relationship and the value of the relationship between, KEMA and KEMA and all the other representative partners that make up KEMA and the organization, but also at all different levels of government and also all other stakeholder organizations as well. I think that is really key. Just a couple of things on the horizon from our perspective. Many of you have seen this if you are, county emergency managers. Grant funding that is being driven with strategic drivers and initiatives is not going away anytime soon. So we're seeing that in Homeland Security. We're starting to see that in emergency management performance grants. We're starting to see that across the grant spectrum to be able to drive the needle and actually move the needle when it comes to preparedness. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon from the federal government. I think, how we look at those strategic drivers, how we assess our own preparedness across the state, across all the spectrums, and how we deal with that is, something that, there is room for input on. We are a geographically diverse state. And we have different needs depending on where you happen to be. So if you've seen one emergency management program in the state, you've seen one emergency management program, and I don't care whether that's private industry, whether that's public sector, and we all have different threats and hazards that we deal with. We all have different things that we deal with regularly based on rural, suburban, or highly urbanized areas. So I think the complexity that is brought about with that type of environment is really key. But I think how we apply those strategic drivers in that grant funding is really key, and I think there's new and innovative ways to be able to do that. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. The other thing that we're taking a look at coming out of COVID is really focusing on things that are critical path items and things that, as I discussed before, really move that needle. There are a lot of things all of our agencies are involved with. Emergency management seems to kind of be the clearinghouse. When we don't know what to do with something, we come to emergency management, and we're really the problem solvers, and we have the ability to be able to figure things out and be able to work through them and plan through them. And I think that's great because we have the ability to be able to operationalize things in very short order and be able to develop plans on the fly and do crisis action planning. I think that's really key, but I think sometimes that's also a detriment to what we do. And I know, looking at our own agency, we are very broad and very shallow in a lot of areas. We have a very small complement. I know that we've been stretched to the maximum with COVID, with all the other disasters that we've had to deal with across 2020, with the civil unrest multiple times, with a derecho in the southeast, with a tropical storm in the southeast as well, and any one of a number of emergencies that kind of creeped up. And we kind of joke, I've lost all hope on 2021 at this point in time. Everybody was hoping for 2021 to be better. And the other day, it just taught me that 2021 is not that much better. We actually had, a unusual event declared at one of our nuclear power plants in the middle of the day. So again, they're the types of things that we do and that we need to be prepared for in our core bread and butter operations. But also, taking a look at what we do and, understanding that from our agency, we're very broad, but where we need to really put our emphasis on to be able to move things forward. And I think some of that comes back to stabilizing the foundation that we have. So, many of we have core functions across the agency that we need to maintain. I think our staff has done an excellent job throughout the pandemic of being able to pivot at any point in time to be able to cover whatever we needed, just like every other organization has done, with also a mind's eye to being able to maintain core agency functions and move grants through and continue with hazard mitigation and continue with the 911 program, and the hazardous materials program and everything else, albeit maybe slightly modified. So, I think, coming out of this, it's really taking a look at where we want to invest our time and energy to be able to move the needle and, move the preparedness of the state forward. And I think that's really key. We can continue to do a lot of different things, but sometimes we don't get to the point of covering the things that we really need to cover to be able to make sure that it makes us, more prepared. As a Commonwealth, we all have different views and we all look at it from different angles, but ultimately the goal is to increase the preparedness and make sure that we have the systems and processes in place across the Commonwealth, to respond to any one of, the disasters that we have. one of the things with stabilizing the foundation, that we're working on from our perspective is we understand that, hazard mitigation is really key to this agency. That's bread and butter operation. That is, taking mitigation funds, and, that involves many of the county emergency management coordinators, but there's also going to be opportunities coming down to have an eye towards resilience, especially with the FEMA BRIC program. There are a number of issues right now that are foundationally flawed in the Commonwealth, and there are things that we're taking a look at, such as legislative initiatives to be able to move the NFIP authority to our agency, to be able to make sure that we have continuity of that program out of where it sits right now in DCED, to be able to fix some of the code issues in the flood zones, so that we are assured that buildings are being constructed to appropriate and current code, because those things eventually will be held against us for competitive funds on the federal level. So there are things that, happen behind the scenes that we really need to kind of rally around and move forward. We realize that there is a committee that L&I coordinates that takes a look at those codes, and because of a procedural issue, there's a good possibility those codes are not going to be updated for another 2 to 3 years. So that means that we will continue to build within the floodplain to the 2008 or 2009 building standards or building codes. And that's something that, FEMA, really doesn't want, and they're not going to continue to award money to the state to the degree that they can potentially, if that is the case. So they're the things that, we kind of take a look at from our perspective. I think the other thing that, is going to impact everybody that's here are the evolving threats and the evolving threat, landscape. So when you take a look at cyber, you take a look at what happened to Colonial Pipeline. We know there's been a number of cyber attacks. There have been counties that are affected by, cyber attacks and ransomware attacks. And I don't think that is going away anytime soon. Breaches of personal information or PII that are being released. A lot of the cyber criminals right now, they're extracting data. They're not just encrypting the data, but also extracting the data and really extorting folks for money. So, our critical infrastructure is really key to what we do. Colonial Pipeline is a classic example. We were not nearly as impacted as states were to the south of us with gasoline shortages and things like that. And that was a disruption of 5 to 6 days potentially, and they're in the process of restoring that. So it just really goes to show how fragile sometimes our critical infrastructure happens to be, and how things can really change on a dime. And this impacts the electrical sector. It impacts just about any utility sector out there. So I think those things are, those threats aren't going away anytime soon. And that's a little different threat landscape than what we're used to in the Commonwealth, especially dealing with natural disasters. The domestic violence extremist groups and continued civil unrest, I think that's something that we're going to continue to combat throughout 2020. That was, a challenge with social unrest and causative factors, and being able to monitor that and being able to get good information. I kind of joke that every intelligence brief that we have had says, well, there's no credible threats against the Commonwealth, or no credible threats. Well, that's usually how bad things really start. There's never a credible threat, but somehow things occur or things transpire. So we all have to get better at being able to monitor that and share information across not just the law enforcement spectrum, but across the emergency management spectrum, so that we have a good idea of what is going on across the state, what the potential vulnerabilities happen to be, and then also taking a look at key indicators for escalation of when we need to take action. So, as we're all aware, events across the nation, we watch them unfold on national television, that, we're not immune to that. What's happened in Philadelphia, a number of times throughout 2020 can happen in other urbanized areas, but also suburban areas, but also smaller cities. So we just have to keep that in mind as we move forward. Some of the other things that we're going to be focusing on that are going to be strategically driven, we kind of put on the back burner. We started some work on the qualification system across the state. Many of you know that we are first adopters for the national one responder system. That continues to be a work in progress with FEMA, but that's really tied to the National Integration Center and the national qualification standards. There are going to be some strategic drivers in the next round of emergency management performance grant funds that are really going to be targeted towards rolling out the national qualification system and a state qualification system. So that's been a long time coming. Many of you are aware of that. I think, you know, the disasters or the emergencies that we had throughout 2020 exposed a lot of kind of having a lack of a qualification system across the state. You know, our agency is not immune to that. When we go back through the archives of the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, there's really only 2 directives that were ever issued regarding, you know, absent the emergency management certification process. There were only ever 2 directives that were ever issued out of this agency on what, you know, type of or what capability we should build towards. So I think there's going to be more information on that. I think that's going to require the emergency management community across the state to be engaged in that process. And to be, you know, active in that process of what that looks like. And we're not going to be able to do everything at once. It's going to be kind of a crawl, walk, run. But, you know, that's something that really kind of drives the needle when it comes to preparedness. It gives us the ability to be able to plug and play resources across multiple areas across the state and actually outside of the state through the EMAC system, if necessary, to be able to, you know, go across state lines to be able to provide assistance in other states for larger scale disasters. So, you know, that's something that kind of we look forward to as well. So they're kind of in a nutshell some of the things that we're taking a look at. You know, coming out of COVID, we're going to take a look from an agency perspective to kind of recalibrate a couple of things. You know, I joke with the staff, but it's really not a joke that, you know, I am time limited. I have a shelf life in this agency. If you take a look at transitions of this agency, and really it comes down to about 1 year to 1.5 years to be able to effectuate change. So we really want to make sure we're able to recalibrate the agency, gain the feedback that we need from the emergency management community through organizations like KEMA to be able to inform our decisions and really drive change, you know, throughout the next 1.5 years to make sure the state's better prepared. The agency is in a good position for any transition of, you know, administration at the state level, and we're able to continue to be able to do the good work that we need to be able to do in support of the citizens of the Commonwealth. So, you know, just to kind of close out, you know, relationships like this with KEMA and PEMA are really critical in this process. You know, I know in the past, you know, some of these relationships have been fractured. You know, it is our, you know, my commitment to PEMA and also our staff's commitment to PEMA from the senior leadership perspective to KEMA to be able to keep this relationship up. I think the more we can talk in with a unified voice, that we can present a unified message to all of the other constituents that we deal with on a regular basis, the better off we are across the state, and the more we can move the needle with it when it comes to, you know, emergency management and getting the things that we know that we've needed for a number of years to make our jobs a lot easier, no matter where you're functioning within emergency management across the state. And with that, President Mertz, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, I appreciate your time joining us tonight. I appreciate the huge change that we've had in the past nearly 9 months in the participation you've had in all of our board meetings. You know, there's been a lot of dialogue between PEMA and KEMA over these past months on different issues. Sometimes there's things that PEMA needs to run by us. The board just is getting our opinion or whatever before they move forward on anything. We've had a lot of legislative discussions as well. So it's working well, and I appreciate the commitment that PEMA has made to our association and moving forward as well. So thank you, Director. Okay. With that, I'm going to continue on with some of the reports from our committees and officers. I felt that early on into the meeting, it would be best that we hear an update as far as the next annual meeting and conference. And so I'm going to turn it over to Amy Amir. She can talk about where we're going in this year and in the upcoming years. Amy?
Thank you, President Mertz. So the executive board really labored over the decision for this year's conference, and we made the decision to have a virtual conference in October. It will be 100% virtual. That means, though, that the plus side there is you'll be able to attend all the sessions and you'll never miss a session. So that being said, Bob Gerlach and I will be opening up the call for speakers in the next few weeks. There's Bob Gerlach now. If you have any vendors or sponsors that you think will be a good fit for our organization and the conference, please forward the information to me. I will put my email address in the chat box. And there'll be more information to come on the 2021 conference within the next few weeks. So make sure you open all your emails from KEMA. Then there's even more news that we secured the Blair County Convention Center in Altoona for 2022 and 2023 conferences. I'll just tell you the dates, don't write them down, we'll get them out to you too. October 22nd through the 25th is our 2022, and October 14th through the 18th is our 2023. Those are all tentative dates. Bob Gerlach and I need to sit down with the executive board and hammer out the programs for those dates. So save those dates, email me if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to add to the conference, but we're really excited to provide this to you virtually. Thank you. Bob, do you have anything to add?
All I want to add is on the annual meeting, because we're having a virtual conference and it's going to be asynchronous, where you can attend at your leisure, it won't be live. We'll probably do the annual meeting in a similar fashion that we did last year, where we did it through a GoToMeeting, Zoom, Teams, whatever virtual platform.
Outstanding. Thank you. And as Amy said, it was a tough decision to go virtual. By the time you start planning these things, though, we weren't in the same position we are right now with vaccinations and some of the protective orders being dropped. And it's hard to tell what what it's going to be like in a couple months. So with that, I think that they made the right decision, and I applaud Amy and Bob both for their hard work in co-chairing our conference committee. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I will say that a lot of the format that you're following is similar to the format that the Hazmat Association has done. And hearing from the Hazmat Association, they've talked highly as far as participation and the format that it was done. So I think that it's going to be a good program. And if anybody has any topics, we go beyond counties and municipal governments and into a lot of the industries. If anybody has any specific topics that they want to see covered, now's the time. You can reach out to either Bob or Amy and get those covered. Thank you very much. Okay, moving into that, we'll continue with our officers' updates. We'll go first and foremost to our immediate past president, Roy Shipley, if he has any reports to bring out. Roy? Are you there, Roy?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. Go ahead.
Okay. The first thing I would say is thanks for all the members getting on tonight. And secondly, I'll be very brief that, if you see an emergency management issue that KEMA can help with, reach out to the officers and let us know about it so we can be engaged with you to help, work through the situation. And, stay active, watch for the news coming out on the conference, and together we can all build a better organization to, I think as the Director Patfield said, that we can build a better relationship with everybody so that we can help our, be better prepared to protect our residents. And again, I just want to thank everybody for getting on and being involved, and that's what it's all about, networking and staying together. So thank you, Director.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate those words. With that, we'll jump right into our Vice President Bob Gerlach again.
Yeah, thank you, President. All I really have to report since the last annual meeting, KEMA now has a new website, so you can check it out. It's still the same address, kema-pa.org. One of the things the board was able to do was basically by switching our domain and our hosting, we're paying about 1/3 the previous cost, but have a significant increase in features and functions. It's still a work in progress. We're going to be adding a lot more to it. In addition to our social media presence of Facebook and Twitter, we now have a YouTube channel, which is one reason why this meeting is being recorded. We'll end up producing it and be able to send it to those that were unable to be in attendance. So that's just 2 new features that have happened since the annual meeting that we're trying to increase for the membership. That's the end of my report.
Hey, Bob, and the contact member for any of the officers, including the district officers, are all on that if any of the members have needs to reach out?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the secretary's report with Amy Murray.
Thank you, President Mertz. The only topic I wanted to cover tonight is that we will continue to use Member Planet for our resource for membership. So I encourage everyone to make sure that you are updated in the Member Planet website. You can go in and put your own information in there and update your passwords, whatever you need to do. I would like to suggest maybe adding an extra email address. If you simply put your work address, we are finding that some counties are spamming them and that you aren't able to get them. So we've had a few people reach out to us and say, hey, has KEMA sent out any emails? I say yes, and they say, well, I can't get them. So a good suggestion would be if you have a personal email address and a work address, to put both of those in there, which you can in Member Planet. So this way we make sure that the information that we need to disseminate gets to you in a timely fashion. And as you heard from Amy and President Mertz and Bob Gerlach, there will be quite a few emails coming out in the near future regarding the annual conference and so forth. And that's all I have. Thank you, President Mertz.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to our treasurer, Tony P.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, President Mertz. The balance as of April 30th, 2021, we have $40,730 in the checking, $494.24 in the savings account, and then that's with Wells Fargo, and then we have a CD with First Commonwealth for $13,916.67, leaving us a balance of $55,140.98. And the only check that was written this month was for the awards, and I do want to show everyone we do have the awards. I have to mail those out. So one of the things, and I'll cover this under memberships, if you can get an idea of where you want your membership sent to, I'll be able to mail those out. Since our meeting yesterday, I was able to get the $304.52 from GoDaddy reinstated back to our checking account. That is a closed account now. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Okay, and as the members should know, we have 2 district representatives within each one of the regions, Eastern, Central, and Western. And I know that some of them are unable to be on the call, so I'm just going to go through the names. And if you're here, please kindly give me your report. And I'll start back with Amy Amir as the Eastern Director.
Thank you. The only thing I have to report is the conference. Obviously, a lot of my focus has been on that, and then some of the work that I've been doing with the legislative group for the Title 35 rewrite. Other than that, I mean, everything I have to talk about has already been talked about. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Amy. And with that, we also the Eastern Area President is John Matz. John?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Director Mertz. I'd like to just say a few words about a program that we were able to take advantage of during some flooding during the summer of 2018. We had 2 disasters that were localized. They did not meet any requirements to be able to get federal aid, but because we have a strong COAD, we were able to help many of the individuals locally. Additionally, Pennsylvania has a Valor program, and there was some funding that was able to be brought into the program for that, and utilizing those funds and the efforts of the COAD, we were able to help a number of individuals who would not have otherwise been able to be assisted because of the lack of federal funding. And, you know, we see this as a pattern. We have more disasters, but they're not far reaching, so there's less chance that we're going to be able to get federal funding. So developing a community organizations active in disasters and making sure that as that comes about, that you have a very diverse group. Our group, as the core group, is members from the healthcare networks, the United Way, education, and a very big group out of various faiths, and that has helped us a great deal, and it will continue to assist the people of our county. The second thing, and we talked about this at the last conference that we had, there's a disability integration task force that was put together by Pennsylvania Department of Human Services under Christine Heiser. And I think all of us have to look at the planning we do to make sure that we are adequately covering the individuals with functional needs. And I think if you look at some of your plans, you'll see that you know, we may be a little shortcoming on those individuals. I encourage you to look, first of all, to your Centers for Independent Living as a good resource. Yeah, we move forward there. You know, rather than starting an own group within KEMA, it was more beneficial to take advantage of what Christine has already put together with the Disability Integration Task Force. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. It's a good report. And just to acknowledge, I mean, what our job's about is it's all about the survivors, the victims of any disaster, and being there to help them no matter what. So appreciate the update on that. Okay, with that being said, we'll go into the central area. I'm not sure if we have anyone on. I know that Tony Subia reported he could not make it to the meeting. Wanted to check with, as well as Evelyn Fisher. Evelyn, so we're sorry, but they could not make the meeting tonight, and as things come up. Same way with, is Alan Clark on? Alan Clark is the Western Area Director, and Frank Janetti, I don't believe he could make it, is the Western Area President. Okay, with that, we'll go into some of our committee reports. Media and Public Relations, Amy Amir again, and I don't know if Paul's on or not.
No, I don't think he needed on, but that's okay. So as with everything this past year, our podcast kind of got put on hold. So, but you guys have no fears. Paul and I will be back with a couple of new episodes here shortly. So if you want, if you have a suggestion or you want to join us, because we always like to talk to everybody for the podcast, please drop us a line to that email address at conference@kema-pa.org. And that is what I have for our media report.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
All right, and let's go with membership. We'll start with Amy Marie.
Thank you, President Mertz. I think I pretty much wrapped up what I needed to say as far as Member Planet. And please, if you know anyone who wants to join KEMA, please give them the word, and we will be more than happy to help them walk through the registration process. Tony, would you like to share anything?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to share is that Amy's doing a good job. What happened was that during last year, Xavier gave us a notice that they were not going to manage it. So between Amy and I, we've been working to learn Member Planet, and Amy's actually come up with some good ideas of like a welcoming package for our members going forward. So that's being worked on, and I also have, as I mentioned in my treasurer's report, I do have the awards here and ready to be mailed out. All right, well, that sums up my membership part, and I guess again, thanks for your patience. We were able to get the awards printed from the same company, and they actually mailed them to my office, and we'll get them out to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the membership committee. Okay, our strategic planning is Evelyn Fisher and Tony Subia, and obviously they're both not on. We did have a report from Evelyn Fisher that they are revising the KEMA strategic plan, and that she wants to go over it first with the board before it comes out. So hopefully we will be able to endorse something and get it out to the membership as soon as possible. But it hasn't been briefed to the board yet to give you any details on that as of yet. But as always, their contact information is available. And if anybody feels that they have ideas of the direction of KEMA beyond where we're at, to please feel free to comment. The mentorship committee was Liz Hess, and she had a family situation come up, and she sent us a report. Liz does the coffee shop program for us, and it's been very successful, and I was very grateful for Liz during the heat of the pandemic, how she was still pushing out the coffee shop broadcasts, and how successful that they were, that that we had in some cases over 100 participants in it, listening in and that stuff. So she has written up her next two coffee shop series, and she's going to base her next few series on the core principles of emergency management. So in September of 2021, that would be on the prevention side, and the topic is, the title is Prevention. Nobody does it, but they know they should, meaning the public. And in October, we're looking at another prevention series that would be called We Try Like Heck to Prevent Disasters, but We Are Our Own Worst Enemies. So those are two interesting topics that should draw a lot of attention, and you can pay attention to the KEMA website, or we'll send it out through Member Planet email when those next ones are. So appreciate her hard work, and like I said, it was great that we had that activity in KEMA still going on through there. The next is a legislative report that I will start out with, and I'll look at John Matz if he has anything more. But I just wanted to say that I was contacted by Nate Silcox, who is the executive director for the Pennsylvania Senate's Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee. And basically the conversation turned into a face-to-face invitation for KEMA to meet with he, representing the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee, to talk about some of the priorities that for KEMA. We've been working very hard for a very long time. I think Director Padfield said 15 years, but I have people on this board that'll tell you it's been over 30 years that we've been working hard and trying to get a rewrite to our governing legislation, which is Title 35. And, you know, every time you take one step forward, you get shot back 2 steps backwards. So with that, myself and Director John Matz from Schuylkill County attended this session. Prior to that, we had an outreach call to Director Padfield in KEMA, and we talked about what some of their legislative priorities were. We went back into the many different documents that were constructed over the rewrite and pulling out some of those languages. So as of right now, some of the issues that we've talked about in our face-to-face meeting was first, we talked the NPIF under one coordinating agency, similar to Director Padfield's message. The workman's comp coverage for EMA volunteers at a local, regional, and state level. We wanted to make sure that that issue is handled. It's quite a concern when you have first responders that may be uninsured and they get in some type of injuries and there's no way to assist them. So that's on there. We wanted to recognize the place of the regional task force in especially some of the work that the task forces are doing in having regional response teams, swift water teams, and that type of stuff to make sure that those are available and recognized through the task force. As John Matz had mentioned before, we brought up the Valor program, and the statement here is filling the void in aid to those impacted in smaller events with the Valor program. And we had that discussion. We obviously had talked about Act 165. That's another, the Hazardous Material Act, basically, that the fee structures hasn't changed in over 30 years. And with that, you know, as costs for equipment and response equipment continues to rise, we asked them to look at that. And we also had a huge discussion on information sharing and data sharing across state agencies and at all levels of government, so that we can open up the door for more, for better dialogue, for awareness purposes or response purposes on information sharing. So those are some of the bullets that we did talk about. The KEMA board will continue to work hard on developing a priority list, those and including those and some others that we have. I urge the membership to, if you have any strong concerns with Title 35, if it's hindering your ability to properly plan for, prepare, respond, recover, those type of issues, I strongly urge you to send us an email. You can send it to the secretary and she'll make sure that we discuss them. I don't know where we're going right now. I don't think that the environment is that conducive for a full Title 35 rewrite, but they at least want to listen to our priorities in hopes that we can put some changes in place. So again, you have issues with Title 35, if it's hurting you at all, if it can make your world a lot better, or more important, the world a lot better for those that are victimized by a disaster, I want to hear from you so that we can include those in our discussion. That's all I have on that matter. I got to switch phones. I got agendas on one and notes on the other. So with that, the final thing is the president's report, and I've been talking all along here, but you know, I truly appreciate the attendance tonight. I've seen we've climbed up to 37 members tonight on a beautiful Thursday evening. I think that's wonderful, and I applaud everybody for their for their commitment to their profession in being here. And I hope that we can continue to work together to strengthen the mission of KEMA as well as the jobs that we do. With that, I also want to take this opportunity to thank the board of directors. Our executive board has done a wonderful job throughout this crazy 18 months of keeping the business of KEMA going forward. Even at the heat of most of the some of the worst times, we've managed to have our monthly meetings. Our monthly meetings last 2 hours, and we moved them up to 8:30 once because nobody wanted to wake up at 7:30 to do it. But then it got too much into the business day, and we basically had to move them back to 7:30, and to get off the phone at 9:30. There's a lot of work and a lot of discussion, and I'm very proud to represent those board members as president, because they all put in a lot of individual hard work on that. So thank you with that. And with that, I come to the most important part: is any comments from the general membership for the good of the association. And I'll open the floor up to anybody that has anything. Now, the last meeting we had a lot of comments here, so somebody's got to be out there to talk one way or the other.
President Mertz, this is Greg Leathers. I just again want to thank the group and the board for all you do for the promotion of the agency and the profession. And I want to thank you all especially for the award. I was very touched and very honored, so thank you again.
Very deserving, but thank you for your comments. Anyone else cares to, any reports, any concerns, any direction that you feel that we should be going? Carl Jones, I seen your green light comes on. You have some issues?
Yeah, just again to say that from my role as the secretary of PA VOAD, I appreciate the partnership and the opportunity to be a member of this group, and that the partnership that we have between KEMA and PA VOAD. It's also been my pleasure for the last couple of years to be the operations lead for the Valor program. So if anybody has any specific questions about what we did and how we did it across the Commonwealth, I'd be happy to be in those discussions. And that's all, President Mertz.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think the Valor program is going to be one hot topic that we as a KEMA board wants to move forward. And personally, I want to look at based on, my own county responsibility, because, the end result is that unless it's a truly catastrophic disaster, there's truly no help for any of the survivors of a disaster. And I think it's all our job to want to be there to help those in need. So thank you, Carl.
Yeah, just one other thing real quickly. We're in the process of writing all the summary sheets and reconciling all the funding. And we will be writing a white paper to kind of describe what the learnings from the project have been. And we're hoping to have, and we're under the gun to have that done by July the 1st. So that information should be available pretty quickly.
Well, that's good, and that's good to know. And I offer myself, obviously, John Matz is familiar with the project as well. But if there's anything that we can do to then, once your white paper is completed, that we can, forward it on. And obviously, we would want to make it part of our discussions with the Senate as well. Okay, anybody else out there?
President Mertz, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Todd, go ahead.
Hey, it's Todd Lake. For those of you who don't, I am alive and well in the world, and I appreciate everything that everybody that's done on the KEMA board to keep the KEMA afloat and going with this COVID. Things are interesting at my little part of the state level under Human Services, and I would like to implore anybody that's a director that's in contact with any of their DHS facilities, including you, President, with Jody down at Torrance, to try to get them to join KEMA. We've got a pretty good group that we do a lot of bouncing ideas off of each other, just between the facilities of the state hospitals and the restitution centers. And those of you that don't know, that the safety manager down at Polk Center down in Venango County is previous director Tom Sherman. He's the safety manager down there now, and I've been working on getting him to join KEMA. And also my previous fire marshal at the Warren State Hospital is now the safety director at the SCI in Cambridge Springs, and trying to get that going along the same level as trying to get the correction facilities, their safety personnel, to join into KEMA and make our organization stronger and better. But thank you all again for everything that everyone does every day.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that. And Todd being a past president as well, and still remaining active in there, that's always great to see when your name pops up on the screen, Todd. And I agree that the more members that we can get into this partnership, so we should take that as a action item back to see how we could reach out to those facilities. Maybe even put Todd Lake part of our membership committee for that special unique group.
Yeah, I'd be honored to do that. And yeah, I think it's something that we could really push that.
Okay, thank you. I do have a note while we talk about our membership. I do have a note from our secretary that on the chat box here that says if anybody's interested in any of the KEMA committees, to please let the secretary know. The more people engaged, the more diversity we have, and the better discussions we have. So they're all listed on our webpage to go forward. And with that, going once, any green lights pop up? If not, I thank everybody for their attendance tonight, and I thank everybody for their membership in KEMA. It's truly great to see the number of people that committed to this meeting tonight. It's even better to see such a large group that's committed to the profession. So thank you all, and you all have a good night.